Hello, everybody. Hello at the back. Right, so yes, it looks like there's not many people here, but there are people watching live, I believe, on screen upstairs, and a lot of these things do get watched down the line online after the event when everyone's at home recovering. So it's a useful session. We're kicking things off. It was a very interesting presentation from MEF beforehand, which touched on some of the things we're going to touch on here to do with user acquisition around value-added services. Obviously, it's a tough issue trying to get people to watch and engage with the content that's out there, and a problem that's growing. So we're joined by our three lovely panellists here. I shall get to introduce themselves momentarily, who we're going to have a look at what some of the issues are from a content company point of view in terms of user acquisition, and hopefully uncover amongst the panel, and then hopefully maybe from you, the audience, what some of the solutions might be, or any ideas you have to share. So let's kick off first of all by introducing who we have with us. So Tony, I'll turn to you first. If you could just say who you are and a little bit about what your company does.
Yeah, hi. Is this on? Hello? Yes, thanks. Yes, my name's Tony Pearce. I run a video game company. It's called Reality Plus. I've been in the game industry, seems like 20, 25 years, quite some time, going back to Sega, Nintendo, early PlayStation 1. And then I had a mobile games company back in the days of Java and Brew, selling to a lot of the carriers that are here today in the good old days. And then moved into Facebook gaming and AR gaming, and actually the business now is very much focused on blockchain gaming. And we work with pretty big IP, so we work with the BBC, and we are working on a Top Gear racing game and a Doctor Who trading card game. So if you're familiar with trading cards, it's a bit like Pokemon, so my Dalek's going to outdo your Silurian, but each card is logged on the blockchain, so you own it and you can trade it, and some people make money from it. And we are in a soft launch right now of that game, so I thought I'd bring my experiences of going through user acquisition across all the key channels and how horrendously expensive it's got. Other games, we work with FIFA, we work with Tour de France, we do quite a lot of things, and we spend, we do spend a lot on user acquisition, and it's interesting to see the sudden change, which I'll come on to.
Yeah, we'll pull that out of your brain shortly. Thanks. So Abhinav, tell us a bit about where you're from.
Thank you, Paul. Hello. All right. Thank you, Paul. So I'm part of Arshiya Infosolutions, which is a 10-year-old decade company into vast domain. We primarily have multiple solutions. One is that we provide services to the end customers using carrier billing. This is one. Second, we are also building our own in-house innovative products, and these are some kind of premium-based services, which is gamerstores.ai, milewaySquare.com, and beyondlifestyle.com. Third, we are also becoming the payment aggregation, which is having the combination of both the DCB as well as the e-wallet section, which is the non-DCB plus DCB, because currently the ecosystem is going through much of the enhancement, much of the changes. So we are adapting to the kind of change which is required. This is one. Fourth is that we also have the traffic. We are also the marketers, so we promote our own in-house product. We also help other service providers, other companies to do the promotions and all. So we are here into the ecosystem of providing 360 solution.
Brilliant, thank you. And Phil.
Yeah, Phil Gontier. Nice to be here in Marbella. So I work for a company called Smadex. Smadex is actually headquartered further up the Mediterranean in Barcelona. And we are a DSP, which basically means demand-side platform. So essentially what we do is we have a platform connected to all of the supply of, say, Google exchanges and many others, where we buy advertising in real-time bidding. So what we do is we work with a lot of the content aggregators, content providers, to basically market their services for conversion to subscription. So that's what we do. And then another part of our business is also directly working in the app ecosystem. So a large part of our business is also working with games developers and app developers outside of DCB, which is basically going through App Store and Google Play Store as well. So, but it's the same platform. It's just that the conversion path is, either through App Store, Google Play Store, or in the case of this ecosystem, through the direct carrier billing.
Great. So we'll come to you for the solution to all the problems that Tony is about to raise. So Tony, I mean, in many ways, we're here doing this session because of you. Because you raised a very interesting issue when we were talking about this year's event about user acquisition. So talk us through your experience about that, the reason why we're here currently.
Yeah, in fact, that is true. I did phone up Jarvis and go, there might be a good panel about this, because literally in the last 12 months, the difference and the change in the way that you have to market a mobile game, I think is changing incredibly. So if you take a step back, mobile games now, 99.9% of them are free to play, and yet those free to play games, make $100 billion a year in revenue. But they're free, so how does that work? It works by the games developers being very clever in making you want to buy an in-app purchase just as you want to get further forward. So there's lots of little transactions, raises a lot of money. But those little transactions are done by about 2% of the people that download. So the other 98% never spend a penny, right? So there's your first challenge, is how do you get into that 2% of people that actually are willing to put their hand in their pocket and play a game. And to target those people, now all the privacy laws have changed, all the definitions of how I could have got my game in front of those people have bumped up the price. I'm going 10x. So if you think a year ago, if I go back to that Doctor Who game, I could have put, I want to hit a Doctor Who, I want to hit a card fan, I want to hit a fan that likes digital trading cards, that is a fan of Doctor Who, that is aged 20 to 25 and has an income of 50 grand a year. Boom. There it was on your Facebook page. It's perfectly targeted, absolutely brilliant, straight to my demographic. Now you can't do that, so everyone now is trying to find that card game player that likes Doctor Who, and it's really difficult to find it, so the cost of that goes up for the ones that do find it, and it's going up. I used to pay, I say, in a tier one country, in my view is UK and US, you could pay $1.50 a download, a cost per install. I'm lucky if I can get a good user for less than 10 now, and I've seen it go as high as 20. So once you've got that user, you've then got to assume he's going to spend $10 or $20 in the game to break even. That's even harder. So you see, it's just getting the barriers to entry for a small independent games company like we are, trying to get an ad in front of a person that is going to like the game is incredibly expensive. So you just have to go, well, what else is there to do? Because I can burn through this cash pretty quick, and I can get a load of downloads, and it might be the wrong person, they don't spend money. So you've got to really start thinking outside the box. It's almost, I kind of think it's going back to old school days, and looking at PR and stunts and influencers and trying to build up, trying to hit the Doctor Who fan bases on Instagram or Facebook. But then if you start doing that then gets annoying, because they start to think you're selling something. So I'm interested in what you guys have to say, because I think right now it's just too expensive to advertise a game. Literally, it's just and the big guy. So you go, right, I'd like to sell my game then to a publisher. I would take Doctor Who, although we have the rights and we have the license. I'd like to take it to a bigger publisher that has the ability to spend millions on something, and it's not about throwing more money at the problem. What publishers now have is a selection of games. So within their games, they can then upsell and promote another game. And that's how they bring their cost of acquisition down. And that's how publishers now do most of their advertising. It's through the community, kind of the fan base they've got.
We'll come back to what that means for sort of smaller content providers in a minute. But Abhinav, what's been your experience of it? Are you sort of experiencing the same sort of thing?
Yes, so I would rather say that my experience into the crisis which we are currently right now facing is dual-faced. One is obviously on the higher CPA, and the second, we cannot go away with the fact that there's another important parameter which is getting hit, which is LTV. Now, why this is happening? For the CPA, we have seen that lately there have been lots of competition, and there has been the evidence of multiple apps which are there on the Google Play Store, on the Apple Play Store. Because of this huge rise in the competition, and everyone wants the targeted apps. So once the targeted ads are there, so then there is a huge demand, which obviously then yields into the higher CPA. Second is when Apple introduced in the iOS 14.5 that the apps need to have the opt-in for data tracking part and all. Because of these privacy changes, so this has resulted in the non-precision targeting of the end customers. Earlier, we used to target the customers in a very precise way and a very meticulous way. Right now, we cannot do that. And because of which, if I as a marketer, if I as a product owner wants to promote my product, so then I need to invest higher amount so as to sustain or continue the momentum of that, the activation which I'm gaining. In the same verge, I'm also acquiring those kind of customers who are not very much interested, which will yield in the immediate churn, resulting in the drop of my LTV. So I'm getting the blow from both the sides. Number one is the higher CPA, and number two is the lower LTV, because of which it is making the overall dent into my profitability part. That's my take on this.
Okay, sounds like you're being squeezed from both sides.
Yeah.
Phil, from a sort of, I guess, a marketing platform point of view, why is this happening, do you think?
Yeah, a lot of it has been touched on by Tony, but essentially, the app game business has become huge, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar business, so a lot of, the early days, you could get discovered on App Store, Google Play Store. There used to be viral elements, people may remember 8 years ago, Flappy Bird's developer in somewhere in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, making $40,000 a day on ads on his this game that just went viral. That's now kind of like died away. What's happened is that it's become an ecosystem that's dominated by very few players, very big players who have huge pockets. If you think about, say, King, Candy Crush Saga, that's been around for 10, 12 years. They're still at the top because they invest a huge amount of money in user acquisition. So you have these large players who literally, every time they have a game or they launch a game that has good mechanics, they literally just pump money through it. So, you talk about, I think in this panel, what would you do with 50,000 a month? 50,000 a month is, I think it almost needs to be done nowadays, is what would you do with 50,000 a day? Because there are many players that spend $1, $2, or $3 million a day on user acquisition. So these big giant companies around the world, they have budgets of between $400 and $600 million a year. So it's become like very competitive. And because there's only a small percentage, there's 2%, 2-3%, depending on the genre of game. If it's hyper casual, then you might, well, hyper casual is obviously monetized via ads only. But if you think about apps that are advertised via or monetized via in-app purchase, you have, the hardcore games, which have a smaller number of users that pay, and the casual games, which has a slightly higher number of people. But it's still a very limited number of people that you're trying to get to. So I think, it's this is the reality. I don't think it's going to be changing. What is going to be happening, though, is, I think there is like looking at what is happening with alternative app stores. That could be, you've seen Huawei, you've seen Samsung App Gallery. There are others. There are talks of, with the DMA from the European Union, which is putting more pressure on Apple and Google because they basically control and dominate those ecosystems. There is kind of like more pressure to open out to third parties, and that could even be this ecosystem and carriers as well. There has been talk of, because if you go back 20 years ago, the only way you could get content on your feature phone, your Java game, your ringtone, your ringback tone, etc., was through the mobile operator portal, right? That also obviously completely disappeared pretty much. So, there is a possibility. unknown as yet that the operators in this ecosystem could come back into play because the prices are too high and unsustainable, only for the very few.
Could I just ask, I don't know whether you know this, but one of the sort of big players spending 400 million on user acquisition, what sort of return do they get on that?
Oh, they get a return. So they look at they measure their spend, and they look at what they call a day 7 ROAS, or so they look at they have an LTV curve. So what they look at is like, okay, you install my game today. They look at how you play the game on day 1, day 3, day 7. Those are the 3 initial metrics. And then they have a sort of like a curve to say that if you've done X, Y, and Z by day 7, the probability of you becoming a profitable user is this or that. So they calculate that a day, if you've got a day 7 ROAS of 15 or 20%, they know that by day 180 you will have broken even, and then after day 180 you'll be making them money. So yeah, they I mean, if you look at Monopoly Go that just launched last year, I think it's crossed $2 billion in in-app purchases. So they've spent probably about 1.5 billion on user acquisition in a year and a half, but they've got over 2 billion back.
So they do make a good return.
Yeah.
But they have to have the deep pockets to make it
Very
happen.
deep pockets.
Before I come to sort of some of the things we want to look at, how we overcome this, I'm just going to stick with you momentarily, Phil. Is this just confined to games, this issue? Or is it across all value-added service sort of content?
I mean, obviously games is one genre which is obviously very strong and very popular, but now you're seeing the rise of non-gaming as well. So, basically apps has consumed our lives. If you think about your individual phones, what do you do on your phone? Pretty much everything from banking to, trading on crypto or whatever it may be. Like literally, your day-to-day is now pretty much on your phone. So it is going way beyond gaming.
Okay. Is that something that you'd echo as well, Abhinav? You see it in apps beyond just gaming apps?
Yes, absolutely. So gaming used to be one of the genre which was considered as there was an era when we used to have play to entertain. Then it was the era as play to earn. Now is the era as play to relate. So the gaming industry has undergone multiple changes with the new technology coming into the picture, with the new concepts coming into the picture. There are both the pluses and minuses. So one plus is that the users are easily adopting the change, just like the fancy sports. So right now, if you want to play those kind of games, so then you need to wait for your turn. Once the match is live, whatever the score is there, then you are winning. So these are the kind of changes when the users have undergone, and these are the changes which are not just limited only to games. So there are multiple other categories as well. Just like in the European market especially, the health sector is picking up like anything. So there are multiple health-based products which are launching up. Wherever any kind of geography, any kind of sector which comes up with any kind of new product, so there is the lot of proliferation which happens. Because of that abundance, the cost of acquisition goes high, the LTV gets stacked to it, and then it is not just limited only to the gaming sector. So that's the thing.
Okay, that's interesting. So that's kind of the situation we're in. Turning to you again, Tony, what would you like to see? What would work for you? I mean, I was going to ask you if you had £50,000 or dollars to spend a month, but clearly, if you had 50,000 to spend a day, what would you like to spend it on?
I wouldn't spend it on UA. I'd take it down a pub, probably. But going back to the metrics you were talking about, this is quite really important. It gets very, very boring when I look at these things, but it is so important. You have to, when you launch a game, especially mobile, you have to do a soft launch, and that soft launch can go anywhere from 1 month to a year. And the soft launch means you launch it in 1 or 2 countries, and you test the metrics. And mobile games now is all about data. Forget how much you think your game is brilliant. Forget the brand that sits on top of it. If you don't hit day 1, day 7, day 15, day 30 metrics, the game is never going to make you money. And what that means is day 1, you should be getting between 30 and 35% for the people that downloaded it the day before come back. So I had 1,000 people yesterday. You want 300, 350 people to come back the next day. Number one metric. Anything less than that, your game's rubbish. People just aren't interested in this. It's not making them come back. Day 7 is another important metric. That's about 15%. Actually, then day 30, which should be about 5 to 10%. You start hitting those metrics, you're proving that people are enjoying it and coming back. So until you get that correct, and you test them in smaller countries, once you've done that, then you go on to monetization and how that user is monetized. So by the time you launch in your tier 1 or tier 1 country, so in our case the UK or the US, that could be a 7-8 month process, because if you see the percentage start to go down, by the time you then fix that. So maybe it's a menu problem. Maybe a user doesn't understand how to get to this part of the game, and it doesn't. So you have to find out where that problem was. It's not necessarily a bug. It's a UI problem. You then have to readdress it, which can take 2 or 3 weeks for the developers to do it. You then have to relaunch it, and the whole thing starts again. And guess what? The number might go down. So you've made the wrong menu change, and you have to. So there's another 2 weeks. So it can take a long time to get to these metrics before you start to even think about the monetization part. So not only is UA incredibly expensive, the cost of actually getting that game to a successful launch, because you're burning cash to get the percentage, you're actually spending money to see if people are coming back. And yes, it's
So did you get to sort of 7 months in, having done all this, and then have to junk it?
I've known companies that have run out of money. Literally, it just can't get it to the analytics and the data it needs to get to.
And that's why you also have now, like, even the large gaming companies, for example, they are now shifting to acquiring rather than developing themselves. So they look at another company who's developed something that's looking quite good. They see the metrics, and they acquire. So there's a lot of acquisition going on at the moment, because sometimes it's easier to acquire than to go through the pain of what Tony just mentioned.
And then once you've got your day 1s and day 7s, and we're now driving users and they're returning, then you go into the monetization part, right? And then it becomes a ROAS campaign, because for every pound I want to spend, I want to get £1.20, £1.50 back, right? And then you work it down to, it's only those 2 users, so how many are going to, 2%, how many are going to go, and then there's a lifetime value then that you put on, and that lifetime value of a person can be a year before you see a return on that. So if you're going into mobile gaming right now, just, I'll take that 50 grand down the pub if I was you. It's not easy.
Put it in a fruit machine. Yes, Abhinav, does that sort of chime with what you see?
Sure, absolutely. So for me, this is basically a $1 million question. So every marketer is now looking forward to find the answers to the same thing. And £50,000 per month is not a big amount as of now, because the cost of acquisition has gone really, really high. In order to answer this, I would like to break this into a few models. Number one, if anyone who is based only absolutely on the career billing, then the margins are very skewed, because we as the service provider are working on a wafer thin EBITDA positive margin. So that's a very less room which is left out to do some kind of experiments. Tony and Phil, they are affluent, they have got good money, so they can do multiple experimentations, but we are left with very thin margin. Second, why the entire ecosystem has undergone such a high cost change? Reason being, because of number one, the high demand. Number two, obviously, is the privacy changes, which we have also already discussed. There are some first-party data, first-party platforms, which I would really want to try this out, and which I am already working with them, and I'm getting some kind of positive rewards into the kind of CPA which I'm targeting. Number one is the OTT kind of platforms. If I have a product which is related to entertainment, I can promote it. So my TG is absolutely targeted. The one who are coming to watch OTT, they can see my ad. The chances are there that they will convert, because they are the one who are the serious players on the OTT platform. And OTT as of now is not very, very cheap. Second is the travel and transit platforms. They are the one who are roaming around, who have good money to spend. Another can be the food apps, because there is a great amalgamation between the food platforms and also the gaming platform, because this is what we are also trying to do that. Third thing, that we also need to have some kind of focus on the engaging products. Can't be only just one entertainment-based product which works on it itself. There needs to be an interactive product, and which works very, very fine. So, to answer this, that how would I really want to spend 50,000? It is not just a one plain, simple, vanilla answer. It needs to be divided across multiple genres, across multiple platforms, so as to understand that where can I get the higher LTVs and lower CPAs and all. And also I would want to divide this as per my product catalog. So that's how I want to divide this.
Okay, so spread it around. Phil, what other sort of solutions are there potentially to this for people like Tony and for other content providers?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, the big tech only. The go-to would be Google and Facebook. And Facebook were dominant for a long time, up until Apple introduced app tracking transparency. Kind of like killed their model, because they can connect the device ID on iOS with all of their targeting technology and knowledge. Now there's been a rise of a ton of platforms. There are many, many platforms out there, including ourselves. But I would say, behind Google and Facebook, you've got a company called AppLovin, very, very sizable. They're not, I don't know if people even know them in this room, but this is a company that launched about 12 years ago and is now valued about 50 billion on the NASDAQ. So a very sizable company. So I think, there are a ton of ad networks and platforms like ourselves. There's the rise of influencer marketing. Obviously, you've got TikTok, but then again, TikTok is not cheap either. But there's been a rise of TikTok, but then also sort of influencers as well. So as Tony alluded to, I think now marketers are now having to be a little bit smarter of where do they invest their dollars? Not just going to the one or two big tech platforms, which is where it used to be. Now you have to kind of at least test a number of platforms. And we're one of those platforms where, either for a small player who wants to spend 50,000 or 100,000 plus per month, because that literally is on the low scale of things. And then also, as I said, both for, this conference is very much around the ecosystem around carriers. The question for me is what's going to happen with the carrier side of things? What's going to happen with the ski ecosystem? Is there going to be a resurgence of mobile operators and this ecosystem playing a role in what basically shifted to big tech, right? Because they basically at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner of operators over the last 15 years or so.
Of course, in some markets outside of Europe, the operators have a much stronger presence in disseminating content. So
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see whether that idea does translate back to bigger markets. I mean, I don't know. I mean, does that sort of make someone like you, Tony, look at thinking, well, I'm not going to launch these games in the UK or the US. I need to target the Middle East.
Yeah, for sure. Problem is they don't spend money. So maybe if you've got an ad games with adverts in, maybe. But, yeah.
Does this sort of, because it's obviously proving difficult to get users for your games. Does that change the sort of business model of how you approach this? Are you looking at developing things that you can then sell to someone else to make it grow, or?
Yeah, or you look at really completely different platforms. We're looking at one now. Do you remember Stadia, the Google streaming platform that went bust?
Yeah.
There's a new one coming out of Asia, and they literally put your game on a URL. And so I can send you the URL, and now you're playing it. It's streamed, because streaming's got so much better. You could stick that URL with invite a friend and get something, and put it out there and into Discord or something. Other ways of doing it and other ways of playing my game are coming out. I just think now the app stores are so overcrowded, so expensive to get your head in the door, that you've got to think outside the box, right? And look at different ways.
Do you think users...
Apple as an example, getting your game featured on App of the Day does nothing. Well, it might blip. I mean, even that's just saturated.
So do you think the users, the sort of people who play the games, download the games, do you think they're going to move away maybe from these saturated app stores where it's just, there's so much stuff?
Or they're just literally searching for what they heard of and what they want.
So unless you can create that sort of buzz,
Yeah.
you can't get anywhere.
I mean, at least, going back to Doctor Who, the BBC have a huge platform of Doctor Who fans. So you need to work with the IP owner, because they can organically drive users. And I think if you build in organic along with paid, it brings the price down. Sort of.
Do you agree, Abhinav? Is that?
Yes, I totally agree. And as Phil was talking about, that this session is more about career billing, so I have one point thing to add. As a strategy, whosoever is looking for to have the career billing, just like we also do. So there are another option which are now coming up at a very, very fast pace, which is the e-wallets. So to name a few, in India, there is no VAS. So VAS does not exist there. It is, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago, it died. It is absolutely all the unlimited calling, unlimited SMS. So there is no prepaid balance which the user will have. So how the other users are able to make the payment, because DCB is an easy thing. It's a quick and seamless process. The e-wallets have taken up, and India is doing approximately more than 13.5 billion transactions every month. China, on the other hand, with Alipay, WeChat combined altogether, they are doing more than 29 billion transactions every month. M-Pesa, which is in Africa, they are doing more than 2 billion transactions every month. So you can see that as per the geography, the entire ecosystem is now gradually changing, and they are not moving away from career billing, but then they are finding the alternative ways, because on the e-wallet section, you will find the higher commercials, and the time to go live is at a very faster pace. And as of now, that is not very much crowded. So the cost of acquisition is lower on that side. You can go for the targeted ads as well. Maybe after 10 years down the line, that may also become crowded, but then some other thing will come up. We never knew that e-wallet will come into the picture, but now that's the game changer. So this is something which I really believe that apart from this career billing, this e-wallet section will be coming with the picture, and we can see that how the other geographies are picking up. Africa is a very, very great example, because there the internet penetration is not that as high as the MENA region, or say even the Indian continental region, but still the people are able to use it. So that's the power of what the seamless payment with security comes into the picture. So I believe, I totally agree that yes, it should be there, and there are other channel options as well.
Great stuff. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions or points they want to make? No. Right, well, we'll wrap it up. Just sort of one last thing, just sort of, I guess, your words of wisdom as to sort of anyone looking to approach user acquisition. What would you say to them, Tony?
I'd probably, if you've got a good game, try and work with a bigger publisher. Try and work with a publisher that has the weight to get it, to scale it, basically. Or launch slowly, then take it to the publisher when the numbers are looking okay, and then go, if you stuck 100x on this, it's going to do that. By the way, another platform that's become popular is Telegram.
Yeah,
so gaming on Telegram has really took off, and that's just quickly going viral through people's channels and links to games.
So I guess try and grow it through Telegram and then sell it to someone.
Yeah.
Abhinav, what would be your words of advice?
I would advise to go with the flow, accept the changes, and from the gaming perspective, because I have been into this industry since more than 19 years and odd. So whenever we are building a unique product, a unique concept, we believe that this will work very, very fine. But the dynamics of the market change at a very, very fast pace. So we need to adopt those kind of changes, and we shouldn't be getting stuck to that same old thing. And when we started adapting those kind of strategies, that yes, now the market has changed and this has evolved, we need to move to next, we need to shy away from using that old stuff and all. So then we started gaining more traction, we started gaining more revenues and all. So I would say that let's go with the flow, accept the changes, keep on changing the strategies, and keep looking forward.
Great stuff. And Phil.
Yeah, I'll end on a positive note because
Excellent. Let's.
because the reality is the ecosystem is huge. The money is there. If you think about what happened during COVID, it sucked in more people that never were gamers or never were living on apps into the ecosystem. So the market today is significantly bigger than it was in the start of 2020 or the end of 2019. So, the opportunity is there. Competition is massive. But I think you just have to be smart and look at, alternative routes for your game or your content, etc. And as I said, who knows, that this could usher in a start of, even in tier 1 markets, this ecosystem playing a role for user acquisition as well.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, that is a nice positive note to end on. So you can go to the bar now, Tony, and be happy.
Yeah.
So Tony, Abhinav, Phil, thank you very much for joining us. We'll dub on huge applause to the video. And thank you for taking the time to go through that. It's very interesting. And thank you for watching.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.